Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome our audience. We are doing another episode of what we're calling Wrangling Parenthood, presented by Chisholm Trail Pediatrics. I'm in my office today. We're doing a virtual interview with someone very special. Our expert today is Jenna Fleming, owner of Central Texas Child and Family Counseling. And she's going to be talking to us about counseling in our pediatric patients. I know here at Chisholm Trail Pediatrics, our goal is to take care of the whole child and family. And we often recommend counseling or some other type of mental health services for our patients. And more often than not, we refer to someone on Jenna's team. So I'd like to welcome Jenna in. Hi there.
Hello, thank you.
Hello. Yeah, Jenna, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what makes you an expert in this arena?
Yeah, sure. So, like you said, I'm the owner, and I'm a counselor at Central Texas Child and Family Counseling. We have a location in Georgetown and in Liberty Hill, and pretty much who we specialize in is working with families, with children, with teenagers, couples. But prior to that, I was worked in education. I was a school teacher and a school counselor. I was 16 years in public education and learned a lot about child development. When you work with thousands of children and you see them over the years, you just kind of become very attuned to certain developmental needs. And when my heart was called to counseling, that's when I studied counseling and dove further into a method called trust-based relational intervention, which I am a practitioner in. And that I received after I finished my master's degree in counseling. And what makes that unique is that it is specialized in children in development, children that are having a lot of behavioral issues and issues with attaching with their parents. So kids that are maybe they're having outbursts that are uncontrollable, or parents are feeling really frustrated, or they're just not able to connect with their kids. It was originally designed for children in the foster and adoption system. And that has really been at my heart. It's a trauma-informed method, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to share that with our local school district and lots of local professionals, including those in my office. And so essentially working with children and their either education or development, mental health has been my life's work.
Oh, that's excellent. I know that recently, because of COVID, even here at Chisholm Trail Pediatrics, the COVID disease has not been our emergency. Mental health, as a result of the cure of COVID, has definitely been more on the forefront for at least pediatrics, because they are not going to schools, they're not getting the social interaction as they used to. Parents, especially first-time parents and newer parents, have no idea how to handle this, and they need a little more help these days than usual. My question for you is, why do parents usually seek out counselors for their children or for themselves? What are some of those initial signs that drive them to you and your team?
Yeah. Well, you make a really good point in that we're in these times that are, we're seeing things that we maybe suspected we would have some after effects when COVID hit. We were focused more on the physical concerns. And I think a lot of people were suspecting we'd see some mental health concerns afterward. And we're definitely seeing that and trying to figure out how we navigate that. In addition to that, when it comes to children, what we're also seeing is developmental issues. So this may not be the typical type of mental health concern like depression or anxiety pre-COVID, as much as a delay in social skill development or anxiety due to lack of social exposure. So I think that is important just to note that this is a very unique time. Even if you have a child who is older, they may not have gone through things that your younger child is meeting because they're developing at a different stage. So to answer your question, in general, when people come and they're reaching out for help, it's usually because something got their attention. And that something could be a variety of things. It might be that their pediatrician met with them and they did sort of like a screener for anxiety or depression, and that professional referred them to us. And maybe that parent is like, I don't know, my pediatrician said I need to call. Or it could be a teacher or some other type of professional. That's a pretty common thing. Another reason why people come is some sort of incident happened. Maybe your child asked for help. Maybe you found out that your child was behaving in ways that are concerning to you, like you found out they were cutting themselves, or maybe they started having toileting accidents more frequently. They're not wanting to leave the house. Maybe they talk at home, but they don't really talk with other people, and you're not really sure what's going on. Other reasons is that there's some sort of pain that is happening. Maybe it's conflict in the home, or you're feeling really disconnected with your kid. There's a behavior that is really difficult to get under control, tantruming in the store that seems bigger than normal, or maybe it's not bigger than normal, but you're just struggling with it. It doesn't have to necessarily be this big event. It's just that it's causing some sort of pain. Another reason is that there's some flags. Maybe a parent doesn't know what's going on, but there's just some concerning flags, like dropping grades, suddenly your child they've lost all of their friends, or they're staying in their room a lot, which is developmentally normal for a teenager and tween, but maybe it seems more than normal. It could be just the things that used to bring your child excitement and joy no longer do, and you can't maybe find anything to ignite what you used to see. Your child's personality seems to have changed.
Yeah, I think being a parent of two myself, we've all been there. You've always had those thoughts, especially when you're in the heat of the moment. You're trying to drag them out of HEB. You see everybody looking at you.
Right.
I now understand a little bit more. Before I was a parent, when I would see that, I'd be like, "Oh, that sounds so embarrassing. Get those kids out of here." Now I understand it, and maybe it's a one-off thing, but maybe that's something that is happening a little bit more than normal, and you need some help from people like you. So how can counseling help with these triggers, these flags you just mentioned, these issues?
Yeah. So first, just let me recognize it's really difficult to sort of sort out, is this developmentally normal? Because we know that toddlers throw tantrums, and so do teenagers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in between, adults do sometimes as well.
Yeah.
So a tantrum in and of itself, that's not necessarily a flag of concern. It's a lot of times it's hard to sometimes take this in, but with parents, a lot of times the things that frustrate us as parents are completely normal and a sign that your child is developing just fine. So what counseling cannot do is we can't fix your child. Like, we can't stop all the tantrums, change everything. We can't fix those, but we can help people understand where is the line between what's developmentally normal. Can I learn better tools for helping my child to manage this? So behavior comes up a lot as far as what gets referred to us. And behavior is simply a way that your child or your spouse or your sibling or your friend or whatever, all of us, behavior is just another way of communication. So when a child behaves in a way that might be frustrating, it's saying something. And that something could be, hey, I'm hungry. My blood sugar just dropped. I need a snack. And that's why I'm being really grouchy and throwing a tantrum, and I'm irrational right now. I just I need to hydrate and have a snack. It could also say something like, I'm so overwhelmed in this environment because my nervous system hasn't integrated my senses well. And so sounds are louder for me than they are for other children. And touch is really sensitive, and all of these things we don't know. And counselors can help parents to sort those types of things out that are really hard to do on your own. Even in my own family, it's hard for me to see the forest through the trees. Having that outside perspective of someone who has the developmental knowledge and the skills for understanding behavior. So it can't really change people. It can't fix things, but it can help people make changes. It can help people have problems not be so big in their life because they can learn tools that work more efficiently, or maybe they're knowing when they need to get maybe a neurological assessment, or maybe we need to get this. We refer back to pediatricians often because sometimes it could be medical. Some mental health issues like anxiety. Anxiety is the most common mental health issue we have in our country. And anxiety has a lot of somatic symptoms, which means your body responds to that emotional experience. A real common one for kids is that they get tummy aches and headaches when they feel anxious.
Okay.
And they end up in the nurse's office. And that's where a lot of times we keep that connection, because we do want to make sure that we've ruled out any kind of physical problem before we just address it from a behavioral emotional. Kind of going over some of the notes I wrote for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think just having the expectation that going to a counselor isn't going to be a magic solution, I think that really helps. And for parents just to also avoid thinking about counseling as almost like a discipline tool. Sometimes that is used. If you don't get it together, you're going to need to go talk to a counselor. Sometimes that happens. And that isn't that kind of sets us up in a way.
These are the bad guys already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When it's not supposed to be that way. And, I think one of the best things for the little kids is you're really counseling the parents. You're not going to teach a 3-year-old like my little girl to stop throwing temper tantrums. It's not going to be done. It's going to be how the parents react to them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's something that is really helpful to understand as parents. If you've never been to a counselor, or maybe you have, and this is pretty common. People have gone to a counselor and they say, well, I felt really disappointed because I didn't know what was going on, or I was expecting to take my child and their behavior didn't change, but they weren't a part of that process perhaps, or the communication wasn't as clear. So what we try to do is we try to set up communication expectations right at the beginning so that we know what parents are expecting, what their involvement will, their expectations are like. Because with children, you're absolutely correct, Shane, we can't remove them from their environment. And they essentially have very little control over their environment. That's controlled by their caregivers. So what we can do with children, even little ones, we can give them a place to express what's sort of bottled up, right? So we all bottle up things sometimes when we feel ashamed to express that emotion, or it feels unsafe, or maybe I'm the littlest, I'm the youngest in my family. And so my older sister, maybe she had some behaviors when we were younger that got more attention. And I felt like, well, I needed to keep quiet because I'd see her get in trouble for whatever reason. It's not a good or bad thing, but it just happens. So we can give children a place to express their emotions in a safe and healthy way. We can also start giving kids, and we can start in younger ways. And it can start around age 3. We can use play therapy with children directly. And as they build up, I'm not a play therapist. I use TBRI. And what we do is, starting at around age 5, we start to work with children on understanding their emotions, and we do this with visuals. So if you kind of think of like a car, those car dials that tell you how fast you're going and so forth, we can, I use like a little engine plate. We talk about your body is an engine, and your emotions change the engine energy. So sometimes your engine runs really hot, and those hot emotions they're not neither good or bad, could be things like anger or frustration, but they also might be excitement or surprise. Some of the moderate emotions would be like calm and focus, and some of the cooler emotions would be perhaps sadness or tired or chill, right?
Yeah.
And so as children understand that their emotions run on different energies, they can learn to either cool down or heat up their engine. And that's called emotional regulation. So as adults, have you ever like gotten frustrated and you needed to just be like, oh my gosh, I need to take a break. I need to pause. I need to take a deep breath.
I'm a Cowboys fan, so all the time.
Right. We need, and kids give us a lot of practice to regulate. That's emotional regulation for adults. It's a lifelong skill, and it starts really from birth. We regulate for our children when they're first born, and what we do to regulate their emotions is we do things like swaddle them, give them a pacifier, we rock them, we shush, we regulate for them. As children get a little bit older, in like the toddler years, we do what's called co-regulation, where we teach children ways that they can regulate, but we still might hug them or rock them or bring them that water. And that's called co-regulation, where we assist their ability to regulate. And ideally, we want to get them to where they're able to self-regulate. And that's like the big skill. So we do work with skills directly with kids, but then we also work with parents, and we can provide resources or tools, or it depends on what's going on with the family, but it might be getting some of your values aligned, and what are the expectations in your household, because two parents, right? Two different brains, two different viewpoints. Even if you're really good at communicating and on the same page for the most part, we can get frustrated with each other as adults. So counseling can help parents get on the same page, use tools, and have words for their children as it's kind of like a teamwork, kids and parents.
Absolutely. Circling back, you mentioned that anxiety is the biggest mental health problem in the country. I know a lot of our parents are going to be asking, what are some signs in regards to anxiety and depression that they can look out for today that can kind of trigger, I need to go see my pediatrician, or I need to go see someone on Jenna's team, that they can look out for today?
Sure. So, number one, if you have any concern for safety, if you feel like I can't keep my child safe, or someone in my family is going to get hurt, that's a situation that needs to be dealt with immediately. So that's always kind of your number one filter is, do I feel like I can't keep my child safe? And that can look like a myriad of different ways. But if you feel like you can't keep your kid safe, then you need to go to a professional. Pediatricians are sort of like that first line of defense in many situations, because we're used to going to the pediatrician. We talk to the pediatrician, and they have ways that they can do screeners for anxiety and depression to help give you guidance. If it's an immediate safety concern, you're not going to go to the pediatrician, because you've got to schedule appointments out a week or two, or however long that takes. If it's an emergency, you go to the emergency room.
Right.
So if sometimes they think about an emergency like a car accident or a house fire or a burglary. But if you feel like in an imminent situation, I cannot keep my child safe, then you take them to the emergency room for a mental health issue. That's what they're there for. I don't have any kind of relationship with any particular hospital. We do have hospitals in Georgetown which is where one of our offices are that are behavioral health. We have the Georgetown Hospital. We generally recommend Dell Children's because they're specialized in children and they have a good pediatric and psychiatric pediatric unit. So that's where I would take my kids if it was an emergency situation.
Dell Children's is a great resource. It's right there.
Yeah. So that's number one. But most of the time, and hopefully it doesn't get to that emergency or crisis situation. So in just kind of what's going on with my child, with children, because they don't have the sophistication of language that adults have and that life knowledge, the way that anxiety and depression shows up may not be super obvious. And this is where I can't really give any prescriptive advice for this because some of these things look like they could be other things. For instance, physical symptoms. So anxiety, like I said, shows up physically a lot with those somatic symptoms. So your child might be complaining of tummy aches or headaches, or maybe they feel dizzy or they're shaking, or you notice that they get sweaty whenever they're around people. Maybe there's exhaustion, like beyond what would be expected. Sometimes you might notice that, depression does this too, where a person like moves slower, talks slower, just think of like a sloth than normal, or faster than normal. You just notice the cadence of movement is off. A lot of fidgeting or moving around, muscle tension. So that's where you might hear about back or neck complaints. Problem like your bowel issues like diarrhea, bedwetting, that if your child is already potty trained and night trained and it's been a while and all of a sudden they start having bedwetting issues, or during the day they're wetting themselves or soiling themselves, it's called encopresis, and that's something that could be connected with anxiety or depression. If your child just suddenly gets really irritable, or they're more angry, or all of a sudden they don't want to leave your side, if they can't it's normal for children to have an attachment to their primary caregivers, so mom or dad or grandparent or those people. That's a normal and healthy thing to want to come back and check in. But as children get older, right, the younger they are, the closer they are to mom or dad or their caregiver. And as they get older, there's not a particular answer. There's not a one size fits all for all children, but they should naturally be able to spend more time away from mom or dad, time with friends, hang out for an hour at a friend's house, if they're at that age where their peers are doing that. So if you notice that seems off, that's a sign. Crying, unexplained crying, trouble sleeping, a lot of temper tantrums or tantrums that you can't get out under control. I've got a list here of some things, so I won't go through all of these. But yeah, and another signal would be things that are happening in school. Your teacher will bring that up too. Okay. You may not have the teacher particularly mention that, but if you notice that there's a change in grades or the way your child feels about their motivation with school, that's something to pay attention to.
Very good, very good. So if the parents, they see some of these signs we're talking about, what can they do initially to kind of help their children on their own?
Sure. So initially, and this is ongoing all the time, is really just to listen. So every human being has needs. We have these needs that we have, the need to be appreciated, the need to be loved, the need to feel safe, the need for attention. the need to balance our blood sugar and stay hydrated and get enough sleep. We all have these needs. Some of them are physical, like the sleep and hydration. Some of them are emotional, and really it goes down to listening to your child. And when I say listening, that's listening auditorily, like what are they telling you, but also listening for underneath what they're saying. So sometimes you'll hear a lot of complaining about school, or school's unfair, or this or that. And what they might be saying is, I'm really struggling, right? So I'm really struggling. So then as a parent, as an adult, we can listen a little deeper. What are they struggling with? Maybe there's something we need to look at with their learning, and maybe some areas that are difficult for them, or talking to the teacher. Maybe their chair is in a place where they can't even see the front of the classroom, and nobody even knew about that. So it's really just listening, not just to the content of what they're saying, but to the emotion and maybe the needs. There's often, when people, like as I mentioned earlier, behavior is just another form of communication. So if you start to see behavior in your child, it could be a teenager rolling their eyes. It could be a toddler throwing a tantrum. It could be a 10-year-old acting sassy. It could be a 12-year-old, acting kind of like a bully to their younger sibling. All of those behaviors get our attention as parents, right? So it's going to get our attention, but that is and a lot of times then we react. Don't you look at me that way. Don't you dare treat your sibling that way. How come you come in here and you expect me to clean up and you don't do it right? So we react, and we talk at our kids, right? Like, don't do this, don't do that. I'm not saying don't have expectations. It's important to have expectations in the household and to have consistency. That's really essential. And then somebody needs to be the adult in the relationship. That's a hard thing for me to say out loud, but it's true. I think it's needed. I need to hear that too. Like, I feel like reacting to that behavior I don't like. It's triggering me, but I'm the adult, so I need to be responsible to regulate my emotion and ask myself, what could be underneath that behavior? Are they struggling in school? Do they need more of my attention? Have I not been clear about the expectations? Do we need to adjust some of our priorities in our family and spend more time one-on-one with our kids? Whatever it is, I don't know, but kind of listening, that's the first thing. The second thing parents can do is then lean into your supports. That's your pediatrician. It's tapping into podcasts and blogs and, resources like this that can help you just become more aware. Family members, friends. As I can say, as a mom myself, I feel like I've learned so much, and I feel so grateful to have other women and men, but for me, it's been mostly sort of an army of women that we've helped each other carpool, and we talk to each other about parenting concerns and things that we feel confident in and things that we feel like we messed up in. And just having that emotional support can make a really big difference. If you've got little ones, it's exhausting. And a lot of times parents put so much pressure on them to be there all the time. But my goodness, if you have if there's an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or a friend that can take the kids for an hour or two and you can get away, lean into that, because we need to recharge ourselves as well. And when we are recharged, then we're less reactive, and we are not making the problem worse for our kids.
Right.
So when our kids are anxious and we're anxious, we add more fuel to that anxiety fire. So we need to be aware of that we're controlling our part because we are the adults. And then last is really, we need to talk to a professional when that's appropriate. It can be hard to ask for help. It can be hard to know when, like, is this a problem? Do I need to go now? Let me tell you, I have no problem sharing with the world. I have a therapist. My family goes to see therapists. we do not go when we are unhealthy. We go when we are healthy. We go so that we can stay healthy. I also work out. I am healthy and I'd like to stay healthy, so I continually work out. I also focus on hydrating my body. I don't think I'm dehydrated or have hydration issues. I focus on that so that I stay healthy. And mental health is not any different. So you don't need to go because of a big problem. You don't need to go because there's a mental health issue. You can go to stay healthy or to make sure things don't get unhealthy.
That's a great analogy. It's probably one of the best ones I've heard. You work out to keep your body healthy. You don't stop working out. Same thing with your mind.
Mm-hmm.
When you're healthy, you keep on working your mind out to stay healthy. That really is a great point. Well, Jenna, this has been awesome. I feel like I'm a better parent today because of the things I've listened to you say in the last 30 minutes. Anything else you want to say to our audience or talk about?
No, I mean, really just if you have any concerns or hesitations, I didn't know, even after I got my master's degree in counseling, I wasn't exactly sure, part of getting your degree in counseling is you got to go to a counselor. And so I had experience in counseling, but I still was like, how do I navigate this? How does this work? So I wanted to, part of my personal mission, and a lot of it is because I grew up with a mom who my life would have changed as a child had my mom received mental health services, but it was not really a thing. And I don't even know if it was accessible.
Right.
And I'm grateful I wouldn't change a thing about that, but I don't hope that for anyone else.
Right.
And when I was a school counselor, I noticed that families were trying to get help for their children, but they didn't know where to go, or people wouldn't call them back, or they were just afraid. So I wanted to that's the problem I really want to solve, is to make mental health support approachable, accessible, and a high quality for our community. Absolutely. So what happens when you call us, I don't answer the phone. Actually, Shannon Love is our care coordinator, and Miss Love, like it's the perfect name, and she is full of love. But she basically listens, and then she helps to walk people through the direction that would be helpful for why they're calling. So if it's in our practice, obviously, if we have people that can help, she'll help point them there. If it's outside, if she'll help. We call her like a matchmaker. She's like a counseling matchmaker. And then people don't know what to expect when they come. So when they come to counseling, if you're a parent and you're like, I don't know what to expect. Okay. So with us, and you would call, you'd get matched up, and you'd schedule your appointment, and that's called the intake. And the intake is really just telling the counselor what's going on and what the background is for your family, for the situation. So it's history gathering, an intake, kind of what's going on right now, and then creating a plan. So you don't have to know the answers. You don't have to know where to begin. That's the counselor's job, is to help walk you through that. And then ongoing, that's called creating the treatment plan, right? So we have a plan to treat the issue that brought you there. And then every time you come to counseling, that is the plan. You're enacting out the plan for the treatment for that issue. So I don't know. I think that a lot of times it's like this mystery cloud of what is it going to look like? And are they going to judge me? Or am I going to have to reveal every secret or anything like that? And absolutely not. That's what it looks like. It's built together. Your counselor has the professional lens and training and tools. You bring your part, and together you're talking about creating and working on that treatment plan.
Great.
So anyway, that was just one little thing I thought I'd share, because that can come up a lot.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Before we go, why don't you tell us where our audience can find you, where your location is located, and where can they find the information about you?
Sure. Yeah. So in our office, we have somewhere around 20 or so counselors in 2 locations. One is in Georgetown off of Williams Drive. So just a little bit west of your Georgetown location at Chisholm Trail. Mm-hmm. And we have our second location is in Liberty Hill off of 29. We are in the old Central Administration building for the ISD. So we love both of our spots. And the best way to find us is just to go online. You've got my website there right now, and there's all sorts of different ways to get there. I usually tell people gtowncounseling.com, but you can go to Jenna Fleming Counseling.com, and my last name has one M. That's a pretty common thing for people to add to.
No.
Or you could just look up Georgetown Child and Family Counseling, Central Texas Child and Family Counseling, or Liberty Hill. It's all the same. It all comes to the same place. There's two ways you can reach us. You can fill out a form online, and Shannon will call you, or you can call us directly. And if you leave a message, we'll call back within one business day. Our biggest thing is we don't like to leave people hanging. That's pretty common in our industry, where people will call a therapist and not get a call back. Mm-hmm. It's an unfortunate thing that I feel like I can speak for my colleagues, that none of us feel good about it. But when people are on their own, it's really hard to call back because they're in sessions all the time. So I can understand. Our company doesn't have that because we have a dedicated person to answer those calls. But yeah, that's how you can find us.
That's great. And your Liberty Hill location is going to be pretty close to our upcoming Liberty Hill location that's opening up this fall as well.
Oh, I heard about that. Where is your new location going to be?
It's on 29, about a half a mile past the new HEB.
Oh, wow. Okay. So yeah, we are really close.
Yeah.
We are going to be really close.
Very cool.
Is it like in that new building area?
The Vista 29 area, just right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly where that is. Well, I'm really excited to hear you guys are growing out there.
Yeah, excellent. Well, all right. Well, that's all the time we have. I want to thank you, Jenna. This was a ton of good information for our viewers, our parents out there, for me personally. I want to thank everyone else for listening in. And if you want more information, please go check out Jenna's website. We'll post a link in the details of this video. You can check out their Facebook page as well. I want to thank Chisholm Trail Pediatrics and Emily Littleton, who produced this all for us. If you enjoyed what you saw today, just give us some love, whether it's a thumbs up, or you want to go write a review about us, or if you have been to one of Jenna's clinics to see one of her therapists, I know that she would appreciate a 5-star review as well. If you have any questions for us or me, please reach out. She explained how you can go to her website and kind of type in through the portal. You can give us a call at Chisholm Trail Pediatrics as well. If you have interest in being referred to someone on Jenna's team, please come and talk to your pediatrician or nurse practitioner. Well, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their summer. Try and stay cool because it is getting hotter. Keep an eye out for those signs that Jenna was talking about. And if you ever have any questions, please reach out to somebody. There's no shame in it. If you think that you're healthy, continue to stay healthy. All right. Until next time, please stay safe.